Hello, hello, hello. Let's see if the stream is working. Let's see. Oh, do not see my chat box, but that's okay because nobody's watching yet. But that's okay because eventually we will be not one of the biggest streamers. Well, I should say me. Eventually, the Echo Chamber will be home to one of the biggest streams in Hillsborough, New Jersey. Just a random town that I could think of off the top of my head. Welcome to the Echo Chamber. I am CG Stag, and this is a place where you can relax on both sides of the tracks and maniacs don't blow holes in musicians with the remote controls. And happy to be back. Just got back a couple days ago from the little trip to St. Augustine for the baby moon / mini moon with my beautiful wife, and it was very good, very refreshing. Got to take a sip in the Fountain of Youth in St. Augustine, which we went over in the previous stream. The Ponce de Leon, which is he's the he's the founder of St. Augustine, the person who discovered Florida, I guess. But he's kind of like a deity down there. He's just on everything. They love Ponce de Leon. I got to take a sip from the Fountain of Youth, which was a cool experience. Just kind of gross water, though. Not very tasty. Just kind of tasted like tap water. I don't think it was anything special. But I will crossing my fingers and hoping I can stay eternally young as long as I get to be 20 pounds later. That's a goal that we're working towards as well. That with being the number one stream in a random town in New Jersey, and getting into better shape in the second half of this year. So with that being said, like I talked about on the last stream, I've kind of remixed the High Strangeness tier list that we had been, kind of dipping our feet into previously. I reworked it. I did a little bit more research because I was not happy with the quality of the first time I tried to break it down. So we're back. And we are going to be going over that again today. So I hope you guys are all, extremely excited to get to do that. So let me take a look here. Yep, there we go. I believe I'm on the correct page. Let's take a looky-doo here. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so here is the reworked Echo Chamber Presents High Strangeness Iceberg Breakdown Tier 1. Now let's open this up. We're going to go to Present Mode. Actually, we're going to close that first real quick. And we are going to actually do... Oh, come on. Sorry, technical difficulties. We're still learning how to do all this. Hope everyone had a good week so far and is enjoying themselves. There we go. Almost. I'll just put myself over here. That way you guys can see the other slides as they come up. Let me minimize myself down a little bit more. I'll be the tiny little voice of God here in the corner. There we are. Beautiful, people. Beautiful. We can make this a little bit bigger. Whoa. Don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I guess I could. Nah. Still want to see how everything looks here. Over this way. How does that look? Nope. Sorry, folks. Should have worked this through a little sooner. But, what fun is it to, oh, let's go that way. Oh, hell yeah. Alright, let's get into it, folks. The Echo Chamber presents High Strangeness Iceberg Breakdown Tier 1. Now, we went over this a little bit last time. If anyone who's not familiar with the iceberg tier list meme thing, essentially what a iceberg is, it's this massive ice structure in a large body of water, typically oceans. I don't know if there are any icebergs that are located in lakes, but we're covering our bases. Typically found in oceans. And the whole thing with icebergs is that what you see is typically only about 10% of the actual iceberg itself. It's actually much larger than the 10% that you can visibly see above the surface. And with an iceberg tier list kind of thing like this, what we'll be doing is, we'll essentially go deeper and deeper and deeper down the iceberg until we're at the icy cold dark depths, which is the really intense material. Today, however, we're starting at the tippy top of the iceberg material that you can see on the surface. So essentially surface level, high strangeness material. Now, what is high strangeness? High strangeness is, I'm going to look up a definition for you because I don't really have like a great definition, but essentially it's the weird and the wild. So let's see here. Oh, here, perfect. High strangeness. So the term was originally coined by Dr. J. Allen Hynek in his 1972 book, The UFO Experience, and was based on assessment criteria he developed, along with the close encounter of the kind criterion that he also developed. Regarding encounters with UFOs and anomalous events associated with them, high strangeness literally means a high number of strange things happening in conjunction with a UFO event. The strangeness rating. All right, this is very interesting, but that's not exactly how we're interpreting high strangeness for the points of our tier list. So high strangeness in this adapted term can pretty much just mean any weird or anomalous sort of phenomena. May that be UFOs, Bigfoot, yada yada, cryptids, ghosts. There's a lot of different things, and that some of these things do have connections to UFO and UFO experiences. They don't have to, at least for our purposes here today. So as you can see on the top as well, if you want, take a screenshot of this if you really care. But everything's color coded on this massive kind of HQ for the phenomena. This is going to be a quick little breakdown of each phenomena. We're not going to really do a deep dive into it. If you're interested, definitely feel free to leave some comments, leave something in the chat, let me know, and we can do some deep dives into different topics. There's definitely some things that I want to do deep dives in going forward that I've already kind of done some work in researching and looking more into. So if one of the topics that I'm planning on doing more research is one of the ones that you want to do a deep dive on, I'll let you know that that's something that we're planning. But if there's something that maybe I'm not thinking of that you're more interested in, definitely feel free to, again, just leave comments. Let me know what you're interested in, what kind of captures your attention, and again, we'll do some deep dives and look into it and have some fun with it. So, up number 1, we got the legend of Bigfoot, Sasquatch. Alright, I am going to change, just because I can't really see my own presentation here, I am going to take myself off. No, because you guys probably want to see. Nah. Take myself off. We're going to go into presentation mode. Present. So, Sasquatch, the legend of Bigfoot. Everybody knows Bigfoot. Everybody knows the kind of lore behind Sasquatch. But Bigfoot is a myth to many, to others a rare yet undiscovered species of ape, and to yet another group, Bigfoot is something more, a nature spirit or demon depending on circumstance, or something completely that we don't even understand, a multi-dimensional, ultra-terrestrial being. Now, Bigfoot's very interesting because, again, he goes back, like this slide says here, it goes back in history a very long way. The, original Native Americans who lived here, speak of beings and creatures in their mythologies that, closely resemble what we describe as a Sasquatch today. So you can hear these tales, again, a 7-foot tall, hairy man stalking the woods, occasionally scaring campers, lumberjack, hikers, and the like. One of the interesting interpretations of Sasquatch is that he is the archetype of this kind of man still in nature. He's this natural, rugged archetype. I think it's a really interesting way to almost like a tulpa of nature. And a tulpa is just a thought form that has been given so much energy that it actually comes and manifests in nature, or in reality, I should say, because not all tulpas have to do with nature. But Bigfoot, it's very clear that what we've typically known as the big hairy ape Bigfoot might be more than just the big hairy ape. I personally don't adhere to the Bigfoot's just like this, rare species of monkey that we just haven't discovered yet, or gorilla or something that we just haven't discovered yet. I just think that if it was, we would have found more physical evidence by this point. But I do believe in Sasquatch. I do think that there's something metaphysical to the Sasquatch itself, something more spiritual that we don't, totally understand. There's tons of different accounts, even connected to UFOs. So, by the logic of Dr. Hynek, Sasquatch would fall into the high strangeness category. Lots of people report, seeing a Bigfoot and then seeing UFOs later on, seeing UFOs and seeing Bigfoot. There are tons of different categories that Bigfoot fits into in terms of this kind of high strangeness experiencing. So, definitely very interesting. I would potentially do a bigger stream on Sasquatch, but I feel like it's just been done so much. I mentioned in the other stream where we went over the high strangeness tier list that Where the Footprint Ends, Part 1 and 2 by Joshua Cutchin and Tim Renner is a very good, very interesting breakdown of more of the fantastical or high strange Bigfoot aspects. So on to the next one, we have UFOs. The core to, again, Dr. Hynek's kind of basis of what high strangeness actually is. So UFOs, terrestrial or extraterrestrial. So UFOs, very simply, does not necessarily mean aliens. It's just, an abbreviation. It's unidentified flying object. That's what the coin was termed initially, and it's been, altered recently to be unidentified aerial phenomena. So there's a lot of, interesting aspects to why they would even change the term in the first place. But for the purposes of this tier list entry, UFOs just refer to any kind of flying object that we just can't identify. Obviously, there's much more of a connection to, little gray men, the alien people, which we're going to get into later. But UFOs can be a number of different things. It can end up being, something that's man-made. There's a big theory that a lot of UFOs that are cited today are actually just experimental or, operational equipment that the United States has. There's people who posited that the Nazis had developed the technology to, essentially create these UFO flying saucer type craft, and that after World War II, in Operation Paperclip, which was an operation that brought over the top Nazi scientists, they brought over that technology with them, and that we've been, flying these things ourselves, testing them out, and, doing whatever the sketchy things the U.S. government does. So, right here, just a little article, 3 military veterans testified in Congress, highly anticipated hearing on UFOs Wednesday, including a former Air Force intelligence officer, claimed the U.S. government has operated a secret multi-decade reverse engineering program of recovered vessels. He also said the U.S. has recovered non-human biologics, that's a tough word to read for the first time, from alleged crash sites. While the topic of little green men did come up, much of the discussion centered around improving processes from reporting unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs, the military's term for UFOs. Increasing UAP refers to anomalous rather than aerial, whatever. It also calls to remove stigma from aviators who report UAP sightings. So this is all about the disclosure that's been coming out of the last, couple of years here, with David Grush being the kind of face of the increasing level of disclosure that we're getting. I'm very wary of all of it, just because I think it's setting up for something bigger later on, but we'll do streams on that later. Up next, we have Shadow People. I had to take a sip of some orange juice. So, Shadow People, there is a paranormal phenomenon known as Shadow People. And the sightings of them have often... Goddamn. Probably just better off just, running through this PowerPoint presentation that I've created and letting you guys read it. But... Shadow people or sightings of them are often terrifying. Shadow people are humanoid figures that witnesses describe as looking blacker than black and totally devoid of light. Unlike a real shadow, shadow people look solid. Now, a big thing that shadow people are connected to is this experience called sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is when you essentially are in this state between waking and sleeping, and you're awake, you're conscious, you can see your room fully, everything looks, you're not dreaming per se, and the only thing is you can't move your body at all. No matter how much you might struggle, you're just kind of paralyzed. And a lot of times when people experience sleep paralysis, they see these nightmarish hallucinations, often accompanying sleep paralysis. So, one study found that about 58% of people who experience sleep paralysis see these creatures. What they are, who can say? I guess we could say that for everything. But I believe that they might be some kind of ultra-terrestrial or spiritual entity that feeds off of fear, because that's the one kind of continuous aspect throughout all these sightings is a feeling of like dread and fear. And a lot of people hypothesize that what they're doing essentially is feeding off that fear that we're giving off, the loosh, as some would say, giving off your life force, your energy. They're literally just feeding off of that fear, and that's how they exist and continue. So shadow people, nice, fun, light little entry. Next one, Mothman, the one that made me completely redo and restart the high strangeness tier list. Mothman, quite possibly my favorite cryptid. I would definitely put him in my top 3 of all time. Just an epic Giga Chad of a cryptid. So Mothman popped up in a town called Point Pleasant, West Virginia in November 15th, 1966. There were these two, teenage lovebirds that went out to a old nuclear facility to do some kissing, to do some getting out. And that was when Mothman was sighted for the first time. He flew over him and just kind of ruined the vibe. He has been described as standing 7 feet tall, with a wingspan that can rival a small craft, glowing red eyes, and human-like figure. Extremely creepy. I love the Mothman, and he brought with him, Mothman is the perfect epitome of high strangeness, because during this year, from 1966 to 1967, when the entire Mothman phenomena kind of came to a conclusion, at least in Point Pleasant. There are still sightings in other places, namely Chicago. But for that year, from 1966 to 1967, all kinds of high strangeness was happening in this poor little town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Tons of UFO sightings, tons of just kind of different various cryptid sightings, and some appearances from the Men in Black. Not Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones, not the movie guys, but actual Men in Black, which we'll be getting into later on. But one of the key writers and thinkers about this whole Mothman flap was a man named John Keel. He wrote the Mothman Prophecies, and it's kind of like the go-to source for that time period, the flap, and all the phenomenon. So, the Mothman Prophecies in Point Pleasant, West Virginia refer to a series of paranormal events, including sightings of a winged creature called Mothman. The events are famously documented in John Keel's book, Mothman Prophecies. So, whoa. There we go. The creature described as a large winged humanoid with glowing red eyes. Again, first popped up in November 1966. Sightings were accompanied by other unusual events, such as ghostly noises, mysterious lights, and mutilation of domestic animals. Now, this whole Mothman flap with all this weird stuff happening, the sightings of Mothman, all this additional paranormal activity happening, concluded in Point Pleasant on December 15th, 1967, with the Silver Bridge collapsing. Ended up killing 46 people. So right before Christmas was a huge tragedy. But sightings kind of, drifted off after that moment. And there's some people, Keel included, who, wonders what was Mothman really? Was he this herald? Was he this creature that kind of gets summoned right before, some kind of massive tragedy happens? He's a warning, essentially. So the next one, the pale crawlers. This one is interesting because it's a little bit more of a new entry to the High Strangeness catalog, you could say. So, while tales of ghosts and demons and night terrors have existed across cultures for millennia, the specific phenomena of the pale crawler is a surprisingly recent one. It really came to public consciousness again in the early 2000s on internet forums like Reddit, 4chan, things like that. Witnesses generally describe pale crawlers as humanoid entities between 5 and 7 feet tall, with elongated torsos and limbs that allow them to move in an unsettling arachnid-like gait. The skin appears pale and hairless, although some reports mention leathery and translucent flesh. So yeah, they're just gross creatures, gross, thin, creepy crawlers, which makes sense that they are the pale crawlers. So they're interesting. They're pretty new though. There's not a ton of people have talked about seeing them in the past, but who knows whether it's just like creepypasta, fake, people writing about it and kind of creating it, or if it's legit. The interesting thing to me about something like the pale crawler, which seems to be kind of like a internet creation, is when we do create the pale crawler, obviously someone must have come up with the idea or discussed it on some level, whether it was real or not. And by us talking about it and creating artwork of it and creating fake stories of it, does it manifest into reality? It's an interesting question. Does it start off as something fake and then turn into something real? So I think Slender Man is a very similar case. I don't know, so I still don't believe Slender Man is real, but that archetype of it, the image of it, has become even more real than just the internet sensationalism allows. Men in Black, like we alluded to a little bit before, talking about Mothman and the Mothman prophecies. This is not referring to the movie. This is referring to real life Men in Black. Now, Men in Black are the CIA, essentially, of the high strangeness paranormal world. These are people who come dressed in the black suits with the sunglasses, the hats, with everything, and show up right after some kind of crazy high strangeness event happened. Obviously, we connect them more to UFO events, but these can be seen. The Men in Black can be seen after Bigfoot sightings, involving ghosts, involving a number of different kind of phenomena, and they were seen specifically in connection to Mothman. So the term is frequently used to describe mysterious men working for unknown organizations. So that's the other thing. They're not necessarily, a government organization. Some people assume that they might be, but, they might. Some people, hypothesize that the Men in Black, who just so happen to be very odd looking as well, they are usually, described as tall men with expressionless faces, slightly pale skin, and acting very strange. They also don't, behave like normal people. They almost act as if they don't understand normal human interaction. Not on like a, not as if like they're cold and robotic. Well, sort of as, and yeah, sort of like they're cold and robotic. Like they just don't understand, like, oh, here's the water. They would stumble with the water, not know what to do with a glass of water or something, with a water bottle. So definitely very interesting, a topic that I would definitely be more interested in diving into and going over a little bit more in context of the Mothman prophecies. John Keel had several interactions with them that he writes about, so it'd be very interesting to dive into it a little bit more. But essentially, again, CIA of the high strangeness world. So next up on the list we have the Fae/Fairy. Fae or Fairy, it's a wide class of being/phenomenon. So essentially, Fae/Fairy in folklore, how this is represented. It's Tinkerbell in whatever the I'm completely blanking on what the story is, but Tinkerbell, everyone knows who Tinkerbell is. It's, Thumbelina from Thumbelina. It's, the pretty, sweet, maybe a little sassy, in the case of Tinkerbell, fairy. Real life fae / fairy are not so sweet and cuddly. In fact, they are absolutely terrifying. So they are a type of mythic being or legendary creature generally described as anthropomorphic, found in the folklore of multiple European cultures, Celts, Slavic, Germanic, and French. They are a form of spirit, often with metaphysical, supernatural, or preternatural qualities. So very often they are like nature spirits, is how they're pretty much looked at. So myths and stories about fairies do not have a single origin, but are rather a collection of folk beliefs from disparate sources. The interesting thing is that they are very similar across culture. One of the interesting things about fairies and fae as well is the fact that even to this day, a lot of people in countries like Ireland or Iceland or Norway still take the impact of fairies extremely seriously. And the belief in fairies can permeate into actual reality, into actual construction. So one of the things I wanted to load up here in the bottom right hand corner, fear of disturbing sacred sites. In some cultures, certain natural features like trees, bushes, or hills are associated with fairies or other mystical beings. I'm not sure, but one of the common manifestations of like a fairy location is called the fairy ring. And essentially, if you ever see like mushrooms or flowers that are just grown naturally, kind of in a circle, be very careful because you might be attacked by fairies. Not attacked, but they're they'll play tricks on you and stuff, or try to whisk you away to the fae realm by getting you to eat food. So just don't eat food offered to you by any like tiny little person in the woods by a ring of flowers. But in the actual real world, while doing construction, this fear can lead to significant delays and rerouting of projects to avoid disturbing those sacred sites. So there's a famous case in which there was a fairy tree, which kind of held up, construction for 10 years, and ended up just resulting in the complete rerouting of the M18 motorway in Ireland. So these people do take all of this, very seriously, which is very interesting. It's very important, to them. So the label of fairy has at times been applied to specific magical creatures with human appearances, magical powers, and a penchant for trickery. That is a fae / fairy. Next up, we have Communion, a true story. I was actually listening to a podcast today with Gordon White of Rune Soup and George Carlwood of Higher Side Chats going over their top 10 paranormal books, and this book actually made that list. Communion was a kind of phenomena when it came out. It was all over bookstores, and the cover is maybe as famous, if not more famous, than the actual book itself. But Communion, a true story, is a book by Whitney Strieber, who is a lifelong encountee of all of this kind of phenomena, as you would describe it. He refuses to call the entities who have visited him aliens. He usually uses the term visitors because he doesn't want to kind of lock in on a conclusion to what they actually, are or might be. So overall, Whitney Strieber's account goes over again his encounters. His account goes over the encounters with mysterious non-human entities, often described as visitors. The book details a traumatic event at his cabin in upstate New York in December 1985, which he later explores through hypnotherapy, uncovering the memories of alien abduction and medical procedures. Strieber grapples with the psychological and physical impact of these experiences, blurring the lines between personal memoir, cultural history, and the unknown. So, the encounter itself, Strieber, along with his wife and son, experience a jarring event of their secluded cabin. He awakens finding himself lost in the woods, seemingly disoriented and experiencing lost time. So again, we won't go into the actual full story too much here. I really do think you should read this book if you are interested, or again, if you are interested, we could do a deeper dive on Communion because it is a very, very interesting story. And Whitley, sorry, I'm not saying his name right. Strieber is a very good and interesting writer, and the story is pretty incredible and pretty credible from my opinion. So next up, as I take a little sip, we have Synchronicity. So synchronicity is the occurrence of events that appear meaningfully related but do not have a discernible or casual connection. First introduced by psychologist Carl Gustav Jung, the concept describes coincidences that carry subjective significance to the observer, often perceived as symbolic, spiritual or revelatory in nature. Unlike cause and effect relationships, synchronicities are defined by their timing and psychological impact rather than by a physical or logical link. These events often emerge during periods of emotional intensity, personal transformation, or heightened awareness, and may involve recurring symbols, themes, or archetypes across dreams, thoughts, and real-world events. Some interpretations view synchronicity as evidence of a deeper order to reality, an underlying pattern that connects consciousness, matter, and the meaning beyond linear logic. It is often explored in psychology, spirituality, mysticism, and systems of symbolic interpretation. So, synchronicity is very interesting because I feel like it's gotten a lot bigger in the last couple of years. People talk about it. It's like when you see, the same number over and over again. You keep looking at your clock, and every day when you look at your clock in the morning, it's 7:19, or it's 9:11, or it's 8:45, and you're just seeing that over and over and over again every single day, and then you start seeing it pop up more and more. There's a famous Jim Carrey movie, 23, that kind of deals with the obsessive end of synchronicity. He starts seeing the number 23 on everything and kind of goes crazy along, with seeing this all the time. But synchronicity, the way that it's described and discussed by Jung, is more like a personal experience. And obviously you can have personal experiences with synchronicity, but what I find more interesting about synchronicity and high strangeness aspect is when it connects to things outside of yourself. One of the most interesting of those, and something that I definitely highly recommend checking out, is the connection between Philip K. Dick, the science fiction writer behind the book that was turned into Blade Runner. I'm blanking on what the actual book was called, and the Valis books. He wrote about these experiences that he had with God, and essentially there's all these connections to this singer, Elizabeth Fraser, who would come on later, and who Chris Knowles believes is the Sibyl of this age, a prophetess essentially. There's all these crazy little synchronicities between their two stories, and it's almost like Philip K. Dick kind of predicted her arrival on the scene and on the world and all her prophecies. So very interesting if you want to check that out and dive deeper into synchronicity overall. He does a really great job of breaking that all down, and if you really want to get into synchro mysticism, which is kind of the science or mystic practice of working with synchronicities in your own life and breaking them down in the larger world overall, I would also highly recommend checking out Chris Knowles' handbook, the Synchromystic. I think it's called the Synchromystic Handbook. Look up Chris Knowles' Secret Sun and type in Synchromystic and you'll find it somewhere. Really, really good. I really enjoy it, and I like doing work with synchronicity. A lot of this, this stream and my eventual Substack that I'm going to start working on, and all the work that I'm going to do is very closely tied into this mystic work through synchronicity. It's my first love of the mystic kind of field. Next up, we have a really interesting one that we're going to kind of go over pretty quickly. So, the Dancing Plague of 1518. Dancing Plague, essentially a bunch of people just started dancing. And then more and more people started to dance. There wasn't any music, however, and they just kept dancing and would not stop dancing, no matter how badly they themselves wished to stop dancing. And in fact, somewhere between 50 and 400 people took to dancing for weeks. There's many theories about what could have caused it. Some people claim that it could have been ergot poisoning, which, if you're not familiar, ergot poisoning essentially creates LSD, so people could have been just tripping out and dancing. I don't think that's what it was. I don't know what it was, but it's crazy. People literally died. A lot of people actually died from this. They danced so much that they ended up dying. That's why it's called the dancing plague of 1518. It's very strange. There's nothing more to it than that, than just a bunch of people dancing to the point of death and not stopping. Mass hysteria is probably, the closest that we have to a legitimate answer. So next up we have the Patterson-Gimlin film. So in 1967, these two guys were out walking around in the woods and, I guess just filming. And they caught this beast over here. Dun dun dun, it's Bigfoot. So, a lot of different theories about the Patterson-Gimlin film. Lots of different documentaries breaking down the authenticity of it, claiming it's real, claiming it's a hoax, claiming it's some dude they paid to walk around in a suit, claiming it's just some dude who happened to be walking around in a suit, claiming that it's actually Bigfoot. To this day, though, the Roger Patterson and Robert Gimlin, both, they're not, I don't think they're both with us. I think it even says, Patterson died of cancer in 1972. But both hold on to the fact that the film is real. They still claim that it is not a hoax and that actually is Bigfoot on the film. Definitely, highly recommend checking it out. It's a pretty cool little piece of film. Again, I'm kind of torn. I don't know. I think Bigfoot is a, metaphysical earth spirit, so who cares if we caught him on camera anyway. Again, another one that we're going to go over really quickly, because I just think it's very silly, and nothing too much there to it. The Fresno Nightcrawlers. So, 2007, some dude on his Ring doorbell thing captures some weird, freaky looking, in the bottom left, that's the actual image of them. Top right is just some dude who made a painting. But it's a weird little video that there's these pants looking things walking. They don't look like they have torsos, no arms, no head. It's just hips and two legs. Doesn't even really look like hips. It's just kind of like a ball where two legs are rotating and walking around. I don't think they've ever really been seen after that. It was really just this one, or I guess there's two YouTube videos that kind of spark speculation about what it could be, and then it kind of just disappeared. Definitely recommend going onto YouTube, looking up the Fresno Nightcrawlers, and checking out the video for yourself. It's kind of super grainy, and again, really not that interesting. Unless, you think there's something there. I just think it might be CCTV camera footage, so it probably is just some kids who snuck out with sheets over their head, most likely. Nostradamus, dum dum dum. So this is definitely something I want to get into for sure. Do a whole stream on, and that's the art of prophecy, and kind of telling the future and what those prophecies say about the next couple of years here. So there's a lot of interesting prophecy aligning to the next couple of years here that I think would be cool to kind of go over, and we can go back and see how accurate those things were. If they are accurate, and this is not just for Nostradamus, this is for other people as well, but if the predictions are accurate, we won't be coming back to to talk about it on the stream. So fingers crossed that they're not all 100% right. But Nostradamus himself, if the discussion of prophecy didn't give away, is a very famous, future teller. I'm sure most people have heard of Nostradamus, even if you don't know exactly who the man is, and know that he has told the future or prophesized the future. So Nostradamus was, again, very broad with his predictions. So make it very hard to tell what exactly he was predicting. But I think it's kind of genius that he's super broad. So taking a look at rather than going into exactly who Nostradamus himself was, we'll take a look at some of his prophecies, some of the most famously cited predictions that Nostradamus had. So apparently he predicted the Great Fire of London. Some interpretations of this quadrant suggest Nostradamus predicting the devastating fire that swept through London in 1666, with lines about the blood of the just and the ancient lady falling from her high palace. Yeah, like it seems very broad. The death of King Henry II, a quatrain that discusses a young lion overcoming the older one in battle, is often cited as a prediction of the joisting accident that killed King Henry in 1559. The rise of Adolf Hitler, 9/11 attacks, yada yada. So, also taking a look at some of his upcoming predictions. So, what does good old Nostradamus predict about 2025? So, natural disasters. He predicts that in the country known as the World's Garden, mountains will spew fire, and people will be forced to drink sulfurous water. So, World's Garden, a lot of people think Amazon rainforest. This website, whatever I got this from, is saying effects of climate change. I think it's talking about. I still think probably the Amazon rainforest, but I'm not 100% convinced on that. But definitely volcanic activity. I think we're going to see an uptick in volcanic activity. The war in Ukraine ends. Through long war, all the army exhausted, so that they do not find money for the soldiers. Instead of gold or silver, they will come to coin leather, Gallic brass, and the crescent sign of the moon. No idea what that's. I don't know how that predicts the end of Ukraine war, but whatever. Whoa. In England, cruel wars will rage. The ancient plague will be worse than the enemy. Some speculate that the war in England may not be a literal war, but a war for the throne between Prince William and Harry, in the event of King Charles III's passing. And for the ancient plague, well, that could be anything, but let's not hope it didn't mean the Black Plague. So asteroid hits Earth and Atlantis rising. It's tough. I'm not a huge Nostradamus guy. I think there's some other people who are better soothsayers or predictors or prophecyers. But it's interesting. I think it's cool. He does have. There's a book that you can buy with all his prophecies contained in the book itself. And he does kind of prophesize in a weird way. He just kind of writes with what are termed quadrants, which I think are just 4 sentences, and that's the prophecy. So you kind of got to figure it out from there. Up next, we have another prophetess, a mystic, clairvoyant, Baba Vanga. So Baba Vanga, not a lot of information about her than what I can find below. She was a blind Bulgarian mystic, herbalist, and alleged clairvoyant who gained fame in Eastern Europe and parts of the Soviet Union for predictions and spiritual insight. Born Vangelia Pandiva Gushtarova, she lost her eyesight in her early teens during a storm and afterwards claimed to develop an ability to see visions of the future, speak to spirits, and diagnose illnesses. So, let's take a look at Baba Vanga's predictions for 2025 to 2076. Very interestingly, I could find almost no predictions made by her in the past. A lot of people were claiming that she predicted this thing or the other thing, but I couldn't actually find where she wrote it or said that. It was just people saying it. So we're just going to show you the predictions for the future, and we'll see how close she is to getting them correct. So in 2025, Europe will become sparsely populated. Not good news. 2028, a new energy source will be discovered. World hunger will be eradicated, and humans will reach Venus. Interesting. 2033, rising sea levels due to climate change. Europe's economy will boom, and Islam will become the dominant religion in 2043. Artificial organs will be mass-produced in 2046. On 2076, the collapse of the caste system and the return of communism. Very interesting. Don't know really much else about Baba Vanga, but her prediction for the end of the world is 5079, so we still have plenty of time, which I'm cool with that. So on to the gray aliens. So for anyone who is deep into the UFO alien lore, then you know that there's plenty of different kinds of aliens. The most common and frequently cited are the grays. So gray aliens, also known as grays or Zeta Reticulans, are a type of reported extraterrestrial being frequently depicted in UFO and alien abduction narratives. They are characterized by their small stature, large black eyes, gray skin, and hairless bodies. So one of the interesting hypotheses about gray aliens is that they are us from the future. One of the things that's interesting about that is these beings typically described as small, statured humanoids with large black eyes, almond-shaped eyes. What if these entities are not visitors from distant stars, but rather glimpses of our own evolutionary feature? Never mind. I thought I had the actual, breakdown of the argument made in there, but maybe that was behind a paywall. But yeah, people, put out the idea that these are us from the future, and they have the ability to kind of come back in time and steer us in ways that won't turn them into creepy, ghoulish-looking gray aliens. But yeah, that's pretty much all for gray aliens. Very much connected to, folklore, ufology. I mean, everyone kind of knows the grays. The Jersey Devil, a local favorite as a Jersey fella. Grew up hearing stories of the Jersey Devil. I actually got lost in the New Jersey Pinelands with my family on a hike. We somehow wandered off of the main trail and just kind of wandered into the deep woods, had to get rescued by a park ranger. Sun was setting, and I was a very young child. Not very young, I was like probably 7 or 8. And my cousins told me that the Jersey Devil was going to come and attack us and eat us or something. And that terrified me. The Jersey Devil is honestly a horrific creature with a very sad and tragic backstory. So the Jersey Devil is said to roam the New Jersey Pinelands, and many people have told others of scary encounters, dark nights in the wilderness of the pines. Yes, that is me. The creature is believed to be the unwanted 13th child of Mother Leeds. According to those in the know, Mother Leeds, before the birth of her 13th child, declared that she wished the devil would take her child away after it was born. At birth, the child suddenly changed into the ugliest of creatures and flew away into the vast darkness out into the pinelands. It is reported that the Jersey Devil inhabits the eerie and misty wetland areas of the region, venturing out into the woodlands at night, seeking humans to scare away with his piercing screams and grotesque appearance. People have drawn lots of pictures of the Jersey Devil, including ones on this page. Many portray him with horns, a forked tail, a body that is part man and mostly animal. The reason is that there are so many versions of what he looks like, maybe because people are so scared by his ugliness. Damn, they're just calling this dude ugly as hell. But they run so quickly to escape. But yeah, he's a weird, freakish creature. Kangaroo-like patchwork of the face of a horse, head of a dog, leathery bat, like wings, horns, small arms, cloven hooves, forked tail. I mean, he's a little bit of everything. Horrific being. Only reason I don't want the Jersey Devil to exist is because that would be such an awful life for a child. A little poor baby that didn't do anything. So hopefully the Jersey Devil is at peace, if he does exist. Woo. Yep, that's the right one. Cool. Astral projection. Astral projection is a spiritual practice, an esoteric term describing a deliberate out-of-body experience, and also is referred to as astral travel, soul journey, soul wandering, or spiritual journey, or spiritual travel. This is a very talked about kind of phenomena in the high strangeness space, and it's been discussed a lot in conspiracy space as well recently, because there's more and more coming out about how the government has has worked with things like astral projection and kind of some other techniques that we'll be talking about later on in this tier list. But it's essentially the ability to project your own consciousness out of your own body on purpose. Because there's out-of-body experiences that people have when they go into, say, a surgery, and they can feel like they go out of their own body and see people, see the surgeons working on their body during the surgery. But this is the intentional projection of your consciousness out of your body, or whether that be, during waking states or even during, obviously, like a dream state, launching yourself out and, exploring kind of the spiritual world, or going and, just kind of floating around your own body while you're awake. And that's pretty much all for astral projection. Skinwalker Ranch, the next entry in the High Strangeness Iceberg. So history and location. Skinwalker Ranch is located southeast of Ballard, Utah, in the Uinta Basin. This is pretty much like what's a good description for it? This is the buffet of the Golden Corral of the High Strangeness world. It's got a little bit of everything, and it's got something for everyone. So there are werewolves, dogmen, UFOs, portals, UFOs, aliens, cattle mutilation. There's literally every single kind of different phenomena you can possibly experience. And the whole story is that, there's this beef between two Native American tribes, and one of the tribes, kind of went dirty and practiced some black magic and cursed this land. And that's what the Skinwalker is. Skinwalker is like a Native American warlock or witch or sorceress or something that, does some horrific form of sacrifice. And then they gain the ability through these evil spirits from that sacrifice to shapeshift. Most commonly into like a wolf. So, there's a lot of theories about what all this weirdness is. It was originally, lived in and owned by, just a private guy and his family. They ended up selling it to some rich dude who wanted to kind of dive in and actually be able to scientifically explore the phenomena. And then it was sold to this guy, Brandon Fugal, who now does the show Secret of the Skinwalker Ranch, which I think is on History Channel. Yeah, crazy. There's so much stuff about Skinwalker Ranch. There's so many documentaries, shows. Definitely recommend checking out the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch show. Plenty of different podcasts and stuff out there on it. It's very interesting. It's literally got everything in there. It's so over the top that you're like, all right, this has got to be fake. But then so many people go there and are like, yeah, now this place is it's crazy. Next up on the list, we have Poltergeist. Poltergeist is just a super, super active kind of ghost. So, hold on 1 second. Give me un momento. I'll bring my video back up. I believe my cat wants to use the litter box. Give me 1 sec. So she doesn't need to use the litter box. She just wanted to meow and annoy me. She wants me to go play with her. But this is the kitty, cute kitty, Molly, who is not a poltergeist. So Poltergeist, yeah, just a very intense kind of ghost. They throw stuff around, generally just cause havoc and problems. What's interesting, jeez, the cat just raced across the room again. Freaked me out, especially talking about poltergeist. Is a type of ghost or spirit that is responsible for physical disturbances. So pinching, biting, hitting, tripping people, levitating objects, throwing stuff around. Again, just kind of very intense ghosts. The Yeti. Again, not going to spend too much time on the Yeti. The Yeti is often depicted as a large and hairy humanoid creature similar in appearance to an ape or a large upright bear. Everyone knows the Yeti. It's just a snow version of Bigfoot. The Hessdalen lights. So these are some lights that just keep kind of... Sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear Kitty Cat in the background, but she is doing her business back there. So just ignore her if you hear her. So the night skies have been a canvas of wonder for thousands of years, but few celestial phenomena have gathered as much intrigue and speculation as the Haltdalen lights of Norway. Alien lights, aeroplanes, or car headlights, electrical charges, and local rocks. These unexplained illuminations, first believed to have been documented in the 19th century in Haltdalen Valley, have sparked a myriad of theories ranging from natural geological processes to evidence of extraterrestrial communications. With an appearance frequency that once peaked at 20 times a week, these enigmatic lights have puzzled both locals and scientists alike. Every new encounter with the Haltdalen phenomena adds another layer of mystery to the remarkable story. So, yeah, really, they're just some spooky lights that no one knows what they are. Cool, but, there's cooler stuff. Alright, let's see. We'll definitely do this one. This one might be the last one. It's going to take us a long time to get through this entire iceberg. Because it's already almost an hour that we've been streaming here. We'll figure it out. But let's do this one and then one more. And then we'll pick this back up on Friday. And then we'll most likely just do like one iceberg show a week, and then we can do 2 other just regular streams a week just to keep it switched up. Because I'm sure this gets a little uninteresting after a while, just looking at a PowerPoint, but I think it's all cool. So the Eileen, I think it's Eileen Moore Lighthouse disappearance. So, on December 26, 1900, a small ship called Hesperus, jeez, these are some crazy names, captained by James Harvey, arrived at the Eileen Moore, the largest of the Flannan Isles in the remote outer Hebrides. Jeez, Scotland's crazy. Essentially, he showed up, and all of the lighthouse keepers were just completely vanished. No one knows where they went to. There's no explanation of it. This is an excerpt from the actual letter that the boat captain sent when he arrived at the lighthouse. So, a dreadful accident has happened at Flannan's. The 3 keepers, Ducat, Marshall, and the occasional have disappeared from the island. On our arrival this afternoon, no sign of life was to be seen on the island. Fired a rocket, but no response was made. Clocks were stopped, and other signs indicated the accident must have happened about a week ago. Poor fellows must have been blown over on the cliffs. That's, probably what happened. They probably just fell off the cliff. Alright, vanishing hitchhikers. We'll do one more after this, because vanishing hitchhikers is also kind of lame. Vanishing hitchhiker doesn't refer to one specific event. It refers to a overall experience or phenomena. It essentially is just people, driving on the side of the road. They see a hitchhiker. They pull over for the hitchhiker. Hitchhiker's gone. That's really it. It's just like a ghost hitchhiker. Phantom hitchhiker, ghostly hitchhiker. That's it. Ball lightning kind of sucks, too. We'll do it, and we'll do one more. We'll just keep going until we find a good one to end on. Ball lightning is a rare, mysterious atmospheric phenomenon described as luminous spherical object that sometimes appears during a thunderstorm. While its existence is generally accepted as real, its exact nature and cause remain scientifically debated. So that's it. I don't know why it's on the High Strangeness Iceberg, but it's a real thing, just no one knows why the hell it happens. Whoa. Mandela effect, that's a good one to end on. A very popular one. So, Mandela effect was first coined in 2009 by Fiona Broom when she created a website to detail her observance of the phenomena. Broom was at a conference talking with other people about how she remembered the tragedy of former South African President Nelson Mandela's death in South African prison in the 1980s. However, Nelson Mandela did not die in the 1980s in a prison. He passed away in 2013. As Broom began to talk with other people about her memories, she learned that she was not alone. Others remembered seeing news coverage of his death, as well as a speech by his widow. Broom was shocked that such a large mass of people could remember the same identical event in such detail when it never happened. Encouraged by her book publisher, she began her website to discuss what she called the Mandela effect and other incidents like it. So essentially, the Mandela effect is just remembering a past event or remembering something differently than what it actually is in reality. and multiple people experiencing that as well. Some people say that Mandela effects, because it was first fired off in 2009, it's the first recorded case of the Mandela effect being experienced, that it is the result of the CERN particle accelerator, the CERN particle accelerator being fired off for the first time, that it caused a rift in the space-time continuum, and now we have all this weirdness where the Fruit of the Loom logo, which one's real? Which one do you think's real? The one with the cornucopia? That's the one that I remember. No, it's just the one with the fruit. No cornucopia on there. But people have found it. Logo examples of the logo with the cornucopia. So, again, is it just, misremembering? Not in this case. And Fruit of the Loom was pretty adamant that they didn't have the cornucopia. They never had it. People still have examples of it. A weird one, too, the Monopoly guy. Which one is real? Which one is real? I'm guessing that you probably figured out that the ones on the left are not real. So he does not have a monocle. He's just walking around, no monocle. Same thing with the bottom one. It's kind of fuzzy. I don't even know if you guys can even see what the difference with that one is. But it's the Bernstein and the Bernstein bears. So it's a small spelling thing. Same thing with that. The people have found physical copies of it being spelled differently. Very interesting experience. A lot of it, I think, can be attributed to people just misremembering things wrong. Like, just not memory is a very fickle thing, but especially with Fruit of the Loom and the Bernstein Bears, there is a lot of weirdness to those. Like, people have found physical evidence that they did have the cornucopia, or that the Bernstein and Bernstein Bears was spelled differently the two times. So, who knows? I think there's some level of credence to the space-time continuum being ripped a little bit by the CERN particle accelerator. But we will pick up next week with Deja Vu. Very exciting stuff. Deja Vu. That's about halfway through, actually, so that's perfect. There's about 50-something entries, and we are at item number 27. So, with that, we will play like one or two games of chess, because it is late. It's 8:02 already. Play one or two games of chess. Had to take a sip of the OJ. You know me. I'll give you guys the full view for chess as well. So, let me see. Can you guys see? Oh, nope. Let me fix this a little bit. Sorry, I gotta make some moves here. I will show my rating in a second. I don't understand what this guy's trying to do here. Oh, yeah, I'll take him. Again, don't really understand what this guy's game plan was there. We can do some fun stuff here. Oh yeah, looking good. Chat, looking good. Let's just keep pushing these. Let's move over there. Let's see if he sacrifices his rook. Nope. He's gonna lose his rook now. We'll just take his pawns. We can't lose this, chat. Too much on the line here. Damn, sweet move there. Come on. Come on. Dude's about to be done. It's over for you, dude. No. That was a bad move, but we capitalized. It's over, man. Let's see. I'll go right back there. Come on. Come on, buddy. This is a perfect time. There he goes. He left. Weak. Alright, there we go. That way you guys get a better view. Alright. Nice win to start. We'll ride it until we lose, I think. So yes, I'm at 709 now. I was awful. I was down in St. Augustine and I was just not focused, and I was playing some of the worst chess ever. Got back down to like almost a 600. And I've worked my way back up in the last couple of days so that I would be back at a 700 for you lovely people. Alright, come on here. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? It's an interesting move. Not really. Damn, he does kind of have me trapped there. It's alright. That's a kind of a nothing move, but can't really talk too much trash, seeing as he is winning right now. Not a lot for me to do here. Let's see. Not a lot for me to do, but also not a lot for him to do right now. So that's the best I can do right now. Gives me at least better pawn structure. Yep, should have seen that coming. Alrighty, well, that was a quick, to the first loss. I'm alright with that, though. Back to 701 for my overall rating. We'll work our way back up, fellas. Don't you worry. So, hope you guys enjoyed the first Redux version of the High Strangeness Iceberg. I will probably get through the second half of that presentation on the next stream on Friday to wrap up that first part. And then we're probably just going to keep it to High Strangeness Wednesdays, Wacky Wednesdays or something we'll call it. And then we'll do regular old streams on Monday and Friday, just about whatever we want to, kind of talk about. We'll dive into more specific topics and a little bit less like structured, a little bit loosey-goosey, more fun. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. And have a great rest of the week. I will see you Friday for some Friday fun time to wrap up the week. And have a good start for the weekend. Peace, love, God bless.